talk a little bit about school safety. School safety has clearly been in the news lately, and not for good reasons whatsoever. School shootings are becoming more common and more dangerous and more deadly for everyone involved. And no matter where you stand on gun rights and gun control, the reality is no one wants their school shot up, and nobody wants to lose their children in these horrific events. I want to share a personal story. Actually, I want to share a couple of personal stories in regards to school safety, because every time there's a school shooting, it hits me personally, and it hits me as a former principal, an educator, and as a parent, frankly. You'd be crazy if these things don't cross your mind as to, wow, is my son's school going to be next? Um, Sandy Hook Elementary touched me very, very personally and deeply, because in 2012, when that happened, I was a principal. And thinking about those children that died in that incident and thinking about the principal who also died, I, I know that would have been me, because as it was described, the principal was sitting in a meeting, and it sounded to me like an art meeting, sounded like she was hitting a special ed meeting, which is something that I would have been doing at the time. And she stepped out of her office. She knew the gunman. She tried to confront him, and she lost her life. That is a horrible story, and it hit me very, very hard at the time that it happened. Not to mention the fact that at that time I had a kindergartner. So that was a rough story to hear. And as the stories came out about how the children died and what teachers did to shield them and save their lives, you just wouldn't be a human being if you weren't touched by that. And then secondly, also very personal, is the recent school shooting at Stoneman Douglas in Parkland, Florida. If those of you who've had me in class before, you've heard me talk about my Christmases in Florida, and it just so happens that I spend my Christmases in Parkland, Florida. I'm very familiar with Stoneman Douglas High School. I'm very familiar with the Parkland community. I've been there for the last 10 years over summers and holidays. My sister-in-law is a teacher at the middle school that feeds into Stoneman Douglas, and my two nieces are elementary students and who will eventually go to Stoneman Douglas one day. So it hits me very, very personally to know that my nieces and my sister-in-law's own high school was affected by horrible school shooting tragedy. Now, again, it doesn't matter where you stand on gun control, gun rights, Second Amendment, regardless. It's really irrelevant to this conversation that as educators, we take on a responsibility to have to keep our students safe, whether it's from gun violence or just daily instances of fights that break out, or whatever. It doesn't matter. School safety is your number one priority as an administrator every single day. Yeah, we call ourselves instructional leaders and teacher coaches and educational leaders and all these great terms that are true, but your number one job is student safety and school safety, and it always will be. So I want to encourage you that when you get your opportunity to become an assistant principal and a principal, that you are dead set on making sure that you have policies and procedures and trainings in place to try to keep every scenario under control so that you can keep your campus as safe as it possibly can. Now, are you going to be able to stop the next gunman that comes in with an AR-15 on your campus? I wouldn't recommend that you do that. I would recommend that you do what you can to keep your life and your campus safe. But at the same time, if you've put great measures in place, great training in place, great people, and you've practiced, you might have a chance of saving as many lives as you possibly can without having to be the one that's turning a gun on a student or a parent or whatever it is that policymakers hope to implement someday. I'm not in favor of arming teachers. I'm not in favor of arming principals, and I'm sure as heck not in favor of arming professors, even though I have a right to carry a gun on campus at any time. It's a right I don't exercise, but it's there. So knowing that this is the level of society that we're entering today, and the opinions that are floating around and the policies that are floating around, I still believe it's irrelevant. Our job as leaders is to keep our campuses safe. And so what I want to encourage you to do as you think deeply about this is, what can you do to ensure student safety? What is your role in keeping students, teachers, parents, community members safe on your campus? Obviously, you're going to want to refer to district policy and district handbooks and codes of conduct on this issue, but it's still, when that key is in your hands and you're the one that's walking around checking doors and making sure the perimeter is secure, always have in the back of your mind that student safety is your #1 priority.